All right, so good morning, good day, and I hope you're all doing fine today. Please stay safe and healthy always. And welcome back to my channel, the Politically Incorrect Asian Vlog. So, what happened yesterday is that I finally got my first dose of the coronavirus vaccine, and it took place at this very posh and luxury premium mall in my city in Metro Manila. And the process was quite interesting. It just took like 30 minutes for me to complete the process. So 30 minutes was like too long a process for you to be able to take your first jab, but it was a methodical process because the appointment that I've had was like 10 a.m. to 12, and I went there at past 8 in the morning. So I was so happy that I was able to complete the whole process, even though the appointment was at 10 in the morning. So I would like to let you know that before you get to your appointment, make sure that you have a ball pen. That's very important, and you bring with you your ID that contains your address, the city where you're residing in. So that's very important. So in my case, I live in Makati, but I work in Taguig. So I use the Gig Trace app, right? And even though I'm not a resident of Taguig, but of course my workplace is in Taguig, so they are allowing it. So it took me like more than 2 months for me to be able to get an appointment. All right, so I don't know. It's per appointment. You don't have to get to the vaccination place and simply walk in. I don't know, but some other cities and locations are allowing walk-in without appointment. But in my case, I would like to do it this way. So it's an online appointment, and it's very easy. Although it took me months really to finally get an appointment. So the only appointment I could get was like 10 in the morning to 12. All right, all other appointments were closed. So yesterday I went there to the vaccination center. The vaccination location was at the cinema space of this mall that I'm talking about. So before you get to the mall, they're gonna ask you to present your ID and your appointment, so that probably to make sure that only the vaccinees or your vaccinee people or vaccinee applicants could get into the mall. And then after that, you go to the third floor. There are like tables in which you will be vetted. They're gonna check again your appointment, like three tables that you have to go through, all right, before you get to the first cinema or theater. So there are like three cinemas that you're gonna go through for this whole process, all right, of getting the jab really. So like I said, it took me 30 minutes to complete this rigmarole or this process. So you have to present your ID, and then after that, you're gonna sign a paper in the first cinema or theater. You're gonna be given a paper. This is gonna be a waiver, okay, which I definitely read. You're given the vaccine, the vaccine brand, yeah, vaccine brand, the name of it that you're gonna write on that paper. So the lady told me it's Sinovac. So well, Sinovac, one of the least favorite vaccines so far. I don't know if this is the least favorite, but based on what I've heard, a lot of people would like to get Pfizer or Johnson and Johnson really. So, and I've heard that they were like old people. No, I'm not against old people, but that's how I'm gonna describe, so that I'm gonna tell you the story right correctly. So they were like old people asking these facilitators. I don't know if they're called facilitators or vaccine workers at the gig. And then I have heard that they were demanding something like asking if it's possible for them to get Pfizer instead, not Sinovac. But the whole vaccination center was like providing only one vaccine brand, which is Sinovac. So I did not complain at all. So that's the thing. I did not know of the vaccine type that I'll be getting before my appointment. So it's not given in your appointment really. So you'll be told about the vaccine that you're getting on the spot, and you're gonna write the name of of the vaccine brand Sinovac on the waiver. So it's like two, yeah, and one page of A4 paper. That's how long the disclaimer is, or the waiver is. So it's gonna tell you that, hey, I'm aware of the blah 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 blah, the side effects, etc., and that you are advised on the first uh, pointer. Okay, the number one pointer, I believe, that the vaccine that you're getting is just an emergency use authorization only. It's not a fully approved or fully FDA approved vaccine. All right, we're gonna talk about that. What is FDA approved and what is emergency use authorization vaccine? So, all right, after like 30 minutes of completing the whole process, presenting my ID, etc., in the third cinema or theater, I was able to get the jab. And well, all I can say is that I'm not feeling anything. So it's just that I felt a bit dizzy. And then when I got out this morning, para ako naiirap. So my eyes were sensitive to light. That's the only side effect that I felt. And I felt like I'm having I was coughing, as well. But I didn't feel any fever at all. So that's exactly what happened. So now, this is actually my TikTok account, the one that you're seeing right now, that's continuously playing. And that's a vaccination center. So it's social, right? And it's being held at these cinemas of this mall. So all right, so I posted my experience really, and here's one thing that we're gonna talk about before we get to this video, and I think we need to get to this video already. So I'm gonna be segueing to my next topic. So I posted this encounter that I've had yesterday as well with a taxi driver. So let me just up the volume so you're gonna hear what we're talking about. So, right, here it is. Yung boss mo? Hindi, yung supervisor ng misis ko. Pero yung kaya yun, dahilan? Grabe naman na. Anong pang naramdaman daw niya? Kuwan. Nilalagnat ka doon. Kaya ng mga Johnson. I mean, pagkatapos nun, within 24 hours, patay siya? Hindi na nagising. Grabe naman nun. Kasi, yun talaga. So, that's the first story of Manong driver. So, when I got into the taxi cab, I did advise him that, hey, just get the vaccine. And then he told me that this is a story about some people he knows who died of the vaccine, and one of which is the supervisor of his wife. If you notice, my voice was skeptical, right? But we need to respect his story. That's his story, okay? We don't have the right to invalidate his story. So we're not in a debate wherein we're gonna say, hey, probably what you're saying is not true. Are you lying, etc.? No, that's not the way how to interact with people, especially for people who are just sharing their stories. I don't see any intention of this man to lie, really. I mean, why would you lie to someone or to a stranger about having a personal story of your friends who died, or some people who died of something, I don't know, because of the vaccine. And we don't know if it's because of the vaccine. So color me skeptical, really, but that's his story. We don't know what happened. All right, so he's telling that the supervisor of his wife died within 24 hours after the jab. So what could be the reason why he died? I mean, probably he's having this underlying, or the supervisor had an underlying disease or illness. Really, we don't know. But the thing is, what if he had COVID during that day and he died? And most likely he'll be reported as, or that person is going to be reported as a COVID death, right? I mean, see the double standard that we have these days. I mean, and okay, let's continue with his story. That's my, that's how I speak when I speak Tagalog. And he's right. I mean, pag hindi na kaya ng immune system, I mean, it actually depends upon your immune system because every vaccine has its side effects.
Parang ganun siya eh. Kasi yung mga trabaho ko.
And then he also said that his uncle also died. I mean, okay. I'm gonna hear your story. I don't have any reason to disrespect you. I don't have any reason to think that you're lying, and I'm not gonna invalidate your story. So that's it. End of story. I'm just sharing it, and I did not show his face, lest he be, fired by his operator for probably, if just in case this is going to create some kind of issue in the future. So that's it. But when I check on the comments, okay, there were I've had some commenters.
When someone would,
for example, someone said that nililito mo yung mga tao. I mean, in an accusatory way, okay? Nililito, or you're confusing the people. You're trying to spread confusion or chaos, etc., etc. So here's my answer to that. All right. So these people don't have any intention to lie at all, unless, okay, they are pathological liars. But why would you invalidate the stories of others, right? Just because you believe that vaccine is the cure, okay, cure to the coronavirus. Probably you're the one lying. You're the one having some intentions. So I told this guy who accused me, or probably the taxi driver, of like spreading confusion that, hey, I mean, you're not gonna get rich by trying to attack people for simply sharing their stories, unless you are part of this multi-billion-dollar pharma, global pharma. Are you making money for defending them? Well, if your contention is that, well, that's the reason why a lot of people are afraid to take the jab, well, my answer is, not all people are as stupid as you. Alright? I took the vaccine, despite the fact that I'm aware that this is just an experimental vaccine. Okay, it did not go through the gold standard FDA approval process. Alright? I took the risk. I've seen the paper wherein it contains that there are a lot of, there are adverse effects or side effects that you might experience after taking the jab, and that you are just taking, an emergency use authorization only. It's experimental. And this reminds me of, we're gonna get to the word experimental as well, because that has become controversial as well, because a lot of people were like saying that if you're gonna do this or that, or think that having the vaccine is not good, you're an anti-vaxxer. All right, there's a difference between it being an anti-vaxxer and someone who's just skeptical about things. So this reminds me of this interview of Joe Rogan with Jimmy Dore. So I like Joe Rogan actually from Spotify, but let's listen to this interview.
Well, for instance, my doctor. So when I got the vaccine, I got the double. And
which one did you get?
I got the Moderna because I have an underlying health problem. I don't want, and I've talked about it before on the show.
We have talked about it, yeah.
And so my doctor, because people are like, why did you trust the government? I don't trust the government. You trust Big Pharma?
Same with me.
I don't trust Big Pharma. I trusted my doctor.
Right.
My doctor who saved my life, and said that because of your thing, you should get it because we don't know how it's going to affect you, and you blah 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 blah. So I got it, and then I just the symptoms you get from it, they never went away for me.
What were your symptoms?
So I had body aches, flu-like fever. I had joint pain. I had a stiff neck.
Have you tried going in an ice bath for 20 minutes?
I've never had those. Although one of my fellow employees said that she's had delayed side effects. That's how she worded it. Delayed, which means that she experienced all these side effects after a few days after vaccination.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how long did it?
Yeah, I'm still cold. I'm still
I'm
cold.
just warming up now.
I
It's
can
fucking
tell.
2 hours in this podcast.
I can tell.
Is when you? How long did it last? How long did your symptoms last?
So on April 17th, I got the second jab, and I just never got better.
Was it immediate before this?
I've heard a lot of stories wherein they got serious side effects after the second jab. I hope I'm not going to get all those.
Yes, but they went away. And then the second jab.
How long did they last after the first jab?
I don't remember, but because
a couple days.
Yeah, it was like maybe a week. I think a week, and then the second time they just never went away, and I was like, what is going on? Because I would get these waves of exhaustion a couple times a day. And then my producer had the same at the fifth week. I had a stiff neck. He got a stiff neck. My wife got a stiff neck, and we all got the stiff neck on the side where we got the shot. So I got it.
We're gonna fast forward.
So anyway, I tweeted about it. I tweeted like, hey, just to let everybody know, this is what's happened. This is my reaction to
just
the fact.
Like I did. I TikToked about it, but then some people were like saying you're spreading confusion, etc.
Yeah.
And because when people started to come on me, like call me anti-vax, and I'm like, no, I got the vax. Right. I got it. I go, when people have a reaction to an experimental vaccine that is not FDA approved, you're supposed to not suppress the reaction.
Correct.
You're supposed to ask people what the reactions are so we can make the vaccines better.
That's a thing that when Jen Psaki's talking.
Yeah. So, and the American government, the creepy pedo Joe Biden government, lied about it, and that's what Joe Rogan is going to mention after that. So basically, this is an experimental vaccine. It says right there in the waiver that I signed that what you're taking is just an emergency use authorization, vaccine only. So we need to encourage people to report whatever side effects they are experiencing, because that's the only way for these drug companies to improve their products, because they are equal. Moderna, what else? Sinovac, Pfizer, Johnson and Johnson, and AstraZeneca. I don't know. I need to get the spelling of that, vaccine. All of these vaccines are not equal. All right? So we need to encourage the people and do not shut them down. Do not attack them. Do not smear them and tell them they are lying, because these are their personal stories. Do not invalidate their personal stories. Okay? Especially for people who've had family members who died after taking the vaccine. I'm not saying who died because. I'm saying who died after. There's a difference, right? Probably they've had adverse effects, or they've experienced strong or really negative side effects, and they died because of that. We don't know unless, medical intervention or further checking is involved. All right, these are their personal stories. Do not try to attack them. Okay, they're going through the 5 stages of grief. All right, for those people who are attacking these vaccinees, or people who have family members who died after taking the jab, please do not attack them, because these are their personal stories, and they mean it. All right, do not lie about them. Do not smear them. Do not call them names like do not call them anti-vaxxer. You're a liar. You're spreading lies. You're spreading confusion, because that is your personal story. You don't know anything about what they went through, about their lives at all. All right, for you to be mean to them without knowing their story, makes you stupid, a monster. And I don't know what makes you. I mean, you are concerned that because of these stories that we have online, stories of people dying after taking the jab, that other people may be afraid of taking the jab. So that's your main concern. But kasama ko sa mga taong doon. Kasama ko sa, I'm part of those people who learn about these stories, about these horror stories of people who died after taking the vax, right? But I still got the jab. I still got the Sinovac vaccine. All right. Do not think of Filipinos as stupid or as stupid as you. Okay, that's just my 2 cents about this. But then I'll be sharing with you another video wherein okay, disclaimer. Okay, before we get to this, I'm sharing this not to spread disinformation. I'm just showing this to you to share a story. So, for example, this lady, the one on the right, shared that 30 days or 1 month after taking the jab, the first dose, she contracted coronavirus. All right, she contracted coronavirus. Not 14 days, not less than 14 days, but 1 month. And then the other lady said, it's not because of the. Of course, it's not because of the vaccine. She's just telling that 1 month after the first dose, she got coronavirus. We don't know. I mean, probably the vaccine didn't work, or it's possible that the vaccinee just had not really strong immune system. All right, so that's another story that I've had at this vaccination appointment that I've had yesterday. So now we get to the difference between experimental and fully FDA approved vaccine. So I was saying experimental, and Jimmy Dore in the Joe Rogan interview said or mentioned the word experimental. So this one is something that was politicized, the word experimental. So if we're gonna use Google, for example, because Google is like a shell of the global pharma of WHO and the Biden and China. Okay, Google is has been censoring people's free speech, people who are sharing their stories after getting the vaccine, and flagging them as misleading or sharing disinformation. So just today, for example, one of my videos was shut down. I guess I got like a community strike for sharing this information because I was just plainly reporting a story that President Trump lost because according to Time Magazine, I was just quoting Time Magazine, because of fortified election, right? But that's gonna be another story. So let's compare Google algorithm with DuckDuckGo. So I'll be showing you the DuckDuckGo and Google algorithm. So if you're gonna search, for example, emergency use authorization experimental, so this is how I usually do some search to check as to whether these vaccines are experimental. So this is what Google is gonna show you, or the algorithm. So it says, what are emergency use authorization, blah blah blah. Emergency use authorization fact checks. So Reuters, part of the liberal propaganda or machine, propaganda machine, it says, fact check, COVID-19 vaccines are not experimental. See, it's expected. Google, America's fake news media, WHO, the Joe Biden, creepy Peter Joe Biden administration are all in one team spreading disinformation, globally, all right, and then censoring people who don't share their dogma. For example, let's listen to Joe Rogan because he's about to spill the tea here.
Vaccine's better.
That's a thing that when Jen Psaki's talking about misinformation online and combating misinformation, she distributed misinformation.
Of course.
Because she said
She
that it's approved by the
distributed
FDA and their gold standard.
She said that?
She said that.
It is not approved. When you go to get
See,
Their gold
who's
standard.
distributing misinformation? Is it us, ordinary people, or the powers that be? Let's listen again.
that,
She said that.
it is not approved.
Distributed misinformation.
Of course.
Because she said that it's approved by the FDA and their gold standard.
She said that?
She said that.
Yes, I also watched that press conference by Jen Psaki. Jen Psaki is this red-haired moron, the spokeslady of creepy pedo Joe Biden. So whenever she opens her mouth, she lies. And she said in that press conference that all these vaccines are, they went through FDA gold standard approval process, which is a lie. Which is a lie. Because in America, just like in the Philippines, they have this piece of paper that tells them that the vaccine that you're going to be taking is just emergency use authorization only. Just like the paper I had yesterday that I had to sign, it also says there that the one I'm taking is just an emergency use authorization vaccine only. So who's lying? Who's spreading information? So now let's get to comparing Google and DuckDuckGo. So you've seen so far Reuters is doing some fact check, blah blah blah. But emergency and compassionate use of an experimental drug, blah blah blah. So if we're gonna check on DuckDuckGo, we use the same search terms, right? Emergency use authorization experimental, or EUA. Let's just use the term EUA. Alright, the first page, emergency use authorization experimental, New York teachers. Okay, this is from this New York Teachers for Choice organization. Emergency use authorization vaccines, for vaccine explain FDA, blah blah blah. Experimental coronavirus vaccine highly effective, from NIH.gov. So even NIH that found that these vaccines that were not fully approved by the FDA effective is also using the word experimental. So these are all experimental vaccines. Okay, some people say that this is not experimental. Well, it's just semantics, right? But still, it's experimental. Okay? Okay, federal law, experimental COVID vaccines cannot be made. Blah, blah, blah. So it's experimental. Regardless of your belief or political leaning, whether you believe in the globalist propaganda, etc., it's experimental. Alright, I'm not gonna get jailed for claiming it's experimental. Okay, but still, despite the fact that, I know that this is experimental, I took the jab. Alright? End of story. Okay, I'm not an anti-vaxxer. I took the jab, guys. Okay, I risked my life to be a guinea pig. This is US FDA, Emergency Use Authorization Vaccines Explained. Okay, what is EUA? So let's check. An emergency use authorization is a mechanism to facilitate the availability and use of medical countermeasures, including vaccines, during public health emergencies, okay, such as current COVID-19 pandemic. Under an EUA, FDA may allow the use of unapproved medical products or unapproved uses of approved medical products in an emergency to diagnose, treat, or prevent serious or life-threatening diseases or conditions when certain statutory criteria have been met, including that there are no adequate, approved, and available alternatives. So it's emergency. So coronavirus is a new type of virus, novel coronavirus. It didn't have any cure at all. Okay, what are we gonna do if we don't have any cure at all? Allow this pharma to manufacture drugs that might help, you know, decrease the surge of coronavirus cases globally. So that's the role of this EUA. Okay, since there's an emergency, we're simply gonna allow them sans approval of the FDA, and let's see what's gonna happen. So, but still, they're not exempted from not filing FDA approval. So, I think Pfizer, Johnson and Johnson are, still in the process of this application for full approval, because a vaccine, it would take 5 to 10 years and billions of dollars usually, in the case of Dengvaxia for example, for it to be approved. It would take years of clinical trials, paperwork, what else, regulations, before that vaccine can be made available after approval to the public. All right, so we're gonna check some other comments I've seen so far on my TikTok account. That, hey, I mean, that person died because of illness, not because of the vaccine. Guys, no one is claiming that. No one is making that claim. But hear me out here. All right. So one reason why a lot of people are so skeptical when it comes to taking the jab is because of the experience that we have in this country with Dengvaxia. All right, in 2016, Dengvaxia was introduced in the Philippines. So the Philippines is the first country alongside Brazil that introduced immunization among children. So in 2016, the DOH spent billions of pesos to acquire Dengvaxia. But one thing that a lot of people don't know is that Dengvaxia in 2016 was not approved by the FDA. It was experimental. And we've heard so far that there were cases, hundreds of children were hospitalized. There were tens or dozens of deaths following the vaccination or Dengvaxia vaccination. And for you to say that, hey, this is not because of the vaccine, well, hear me out again, okay? Here are the scenarios that happened after that. The Philippines DOH was demanding that it be refunded 3.5 billion pesos spent on Dengvaxia. The demand was made from Sanofi, so the manufacturer of Dengvaxia. So 3.5 billion. All right. So why the hell would our DOH demand that amount of money if these vaccines were effective? So it turned out that it wasn't effective. So now let's check on one of the most reputable research sites in the world. So Lancet, for example. So the Lancet, it says here, the Philippines was among the first countries in the world to introduce the Haemophilus influenza, a type B vaccine, etc. So it says here in 2016, the Philippines was the first country alongside Brazil to introduce a national immunization campaign for dengue using Dengvaxia. However, as reported in our editorial in February 2018 and late 2017, health authorities in the Philippines decided to stop the immunization campaign after 14 children died out of more than 800,000 inoculated with Dengvaxia in 2016 and 2017. It says here, although no death was directly linked to the vaccine, just like the cases that we have today, these deaths, because there were no further investigations done, the deaths after the COVID vaccine, for example, okay, no link. And if we're gonna search on Google again, for example, the COVID deaths, they were like disclaimer, not link or no link to the COVID vaccine. But here, although no death was directly linked to the vaccine, concerns were further raised by a study funded by Sanofi Pasteur, the producer of the vaccine that indicated that dengue seronegative children vaccinated with Dengvaxia had higher chances of subsequent hospitalization for dengue than seropositive children. So these are the facts that we need to know about the Dengvaxia case. But you might say, don't compare apples to oranges. Well, this is actually apples to apples. All right, and it's actually very unfair to compare the two because Dengvaxia vaccine went through a rigorous process of clinical trials. It took Sanofi, the producer or manufacturer, 20 years to develop this vaccine. 20 years. And not only that, it took them $1.8 billion, okay, of R&D to produce this Dengvaxia vaccine. So there you go. It's unfair to compare the two. Okay. Again, the facts are Dengvaxia vaccine took 20 years and $1.8 billion to produce, whereas the vaccines that we have today, the coronavirus vaccines, less than 2 years for them to come up with these products that they are now forcing us to take. All right, less than 2 years or less than 1 year. Okay, just think about that. Now, according to pharmaceutical technology, the dengue vaccine dilemma, pharma giant Sanofi has been mired in controversy in the Philippines after allegations that its dengue vaccine, Dengvaxia, which had been used in widespread school vaccination program, was linked to the deaths of children. Since the vaccine's ban in the Philippines has declared a national dengue epidemic, creating a public health dilemma as infection rates soar. And then here in the spring of 2016, Dengvaxia had a high-profile launch in the Philippines as the country, having been involved in every phase of clinical development, became the first in the world to access the live recombinant tetravalent vaccine. So the Department of Health spent $67 million, so that's like 1.5 billion on Dengvaxia and kick off a mass immunization program with the aim of vaccinating 1 million students by the end of the year. So in the case of Dengvaxia, it took years of like research and studies before, well, that was 2016, before they learned about the side effects of the vaccine. All right, so 2017 year, 1 year after that, safety concerns after relabeling more than 6 months later. So 6 months after more than 830,000 children had received at least one dose of the vaccine, Sanofi announced that it was changing its label to restrict its use to only those who had already been exposed to the dengue virus, etc. So now, I said earlier that the Dengvaxia vaccine was not approved by FDA because, again, it will take years, 5 years to 10 years before a vaccine can be approved by the FDA. So here, for example, first FDA-approved vaccine for the prevention of dengue disease in endemic regions. So this was May 2019. So that was 17, 18, 3 years after the introduction of Dengvaxia in the Philippines. So the Food and Drug, this is FDA website, okay? The Food and Drug Administration announced today, May 1st, that the approval of Dengvaxia, the first vaccine approved for the prevention of dengue disease caused by all dengue virus serotypes. So basically, in 2016, without any FDA approval, Dengvaxia vaccine was just an experimental vaccine, and these children who were forced to undergo, I don't know if they were forced, but definitely it's mandated by law, right? Who went through this immunization program by the government that cost our government multi-billion peso in taxpayers' money. These children were like guinea pigs, all right, because the vaccine was experimental. So I'm just giving you a real life scenario or case that we've had in this country in the past about having all this, experimental vaccines. Okay, we just hope that in the future we're not gonna have any side effects. All right, we trust, probably we need to trust the process. I don't know, but I'm a very skeptical person. But color me skeptical again, and I don't give a damn about your bashing. All right, accuse me of spreading misinformation, etc. But if we're gonna check further, the only people who are spreading or group who are spreading this and misinformation are those in power, or they've been spreading information ever since the start of this pandemic. For example, all these global organizations, WHO, the fake news media in the United States, including our useful idiot local media in the Philippines. What else? Including our government, the Joe Biden administration, they hid the fact, they concealed the fact that, including big tech as well, that there is a possibility, there is big evidence, okay, that the coronavirus actually came from the Wuhan labs. Okay, that was, labeled as conspiracy theory last year by big tech, by the fake news media, and the big tech censored anyone who shared any story containing the lab leak theory. All right, I'm actually one of the first, if not the first, Facebook user who was banned by Facebook. My Facebook account of more than 10 years. Okay, after sharing this, and that was March of 2019. All right, I remember vividly what happened in mid-March of 2019. I shared a screenshot. Okay, I don't know if I can still find it on Twitter, that particular screenshot that I shared on a Facebook group, a private Facebook group of anti-PC or anti-politically correct. That's like a global, Facebook group of anti-PC people, and I shared this again a screenshot of a Twitter post of China Daily, okay, or China Global, if I'm not mistaken. So let me just search if I can still find it. All right, so I did Google. It's actually China Daily. This is what I shared in March of 2019. That was after the lockdown, or days prior to the lockdown, actually. So, because the lockdown was like 14, 15, 16 of March, right? So I shared this. This is a screenshot. So let me just show it to you. Take a look at the largest virus bank in Asia, Wuhan Institute of Virology in central China's Hubei province. Preserves more than 1,500 different strains of virus. I shared that with the caption that what's the possibility that this might have been a lab leak phenomenon. So that's what I shared to this anti-PC Facebook group. And like less than an hour, or like in just a couple of minutes after posting that, my Facebook was gone. My Facebook account of 10 years. This is exactly what I shared. And if you're gonna check, this post by China Daily was posted on May 2018. All right, so I'm just gonna try to get a clearer picture. So China Daily posted on Twitter May 29, 2018. Take a look at the largest virus bank. And I said, what's the possibility that this might have been a lab leak phenomenon. And again, after a couple of minutes, Facebook shut down my account of 10 years. So, who's spreading information? Big tech has been censoring or censored millions of accounts all over the world without any consequences at all. So that's my rant for today. If you like this video, please comment, share, and subscribe. And this is again Politically Incorrect Asian Vlog. And have a good one to all of you.